over the past few weeks, my feed has been flooded with one claim. On X, on Reddit, everywhere the same thing. Install this one tool, and you'll get twice as much out of your Claude subscription. The name here, Ponytail, got 77,000 stars on GitHub in just 3 weeks. Here we can see it. By now, it's even up to 81,000. And everyone's writing, saves tons of tokens, cuts costs in half, never writes too much code again. I took a look at it, tested it myself, and my verdict up front. There's something to the idea, but not really to the number in those posts. Why? That's coming up now. First off, what even is this thing? Ponytail is not a program that somehow compresses the tokens. That's important, so let's clear that up right away. Ponytail is nothing more than a set of rules for your coding agent, so basically a skill that you load into Claude Code. And the claim behind the whole thing is actually pretty cool. Teach your agent to think like the laziest senior developer in the room. You know the type. Long ponytail, oval glasses, been at the company longer than the version control system. That's exactly the icon right here. You basically show him 50 lines of code. He looks at it, says nothing, and turns those 50 lines into a single one. And that's exactly what the skill does. Before the agent writes code, it goes through a ladder. And this here is basically that predefined ladder. Stop at the first rung that holds. Level 1. Does this need to exist at all? If no, leave it out. That's the YAGNI principle. It stands for you aren't gonna need it. A principle from the 90s. Don't build anything you only might need someday. Level 2, is it already in the codebase? Does it already exist in the project? Then reuse it, instead of writing it again. Number 3, does the standard library do it? Can the standard library handle it? So, is there a native feature? Maybe a single line, a single import is enough. And only when the answer to all of these is no does it write new code. So far, the whole thing works with 16 different agents. Pretty much everything, really. Claude Code, Codex, Cursor, Gemini, even OpenClaw and Hermes can all use it. For now, we're just going to do it primarily in Claude Code. So, we're in the terminal. It's really simple. We first start up our Claude Code and enter 2 commands. First, /plugin at marketplace, and then Ponytail. That gets added, and then from this marketplace, we directly install the plugin. It installs everything for you, and it's done in just 2 lines, 2 separate inputs. That's it. Then there are 4 levels: light, full, ultra, and off. Full is basically the default. Ultra is the mode for days when the codebase has personally offended you. It literally turns 100 lines of code into 3. Now, let's get to the official numbers from Ponytail. They're right there on the homepage, in big letters. There are 3 of them. Here, 54% less code. Next to it, 22% fewer tokens, 20% lower costs, 27% faster. People read 54% and think that's the cost, but it isn't. 54% is less code written, so fewer lines. The tokens, which are what actually eat up your subscription, only drop by 22% on average. Now, here's the thing. Those numbers were measured with Haiku 4.5. That's the smallest, the cheapest Claude model. Not Sonnet, not Opus. Not what most people use. Tested by the developer himself. 4 runs. No independent audit. And one more thing. Doubles your subscription. Ponytail never claims that anywhere. Not on the site. Not the creator. People on X and Reddit just made it up. To double it, you'd save 50%. In reality, it's barely 20. And now the actual truth. The part that tips the whole promise over. Where does your token budget in Claude Code actually go? And the result is striking. Not into the code. 99.93%. There's an interesting GitHub cache reads. So a quick explanation of cache reads. Whole thing at every single step. Claude Code sends along the entire conversation so far, your whole history, your CLAUDE.md, and every file it has read. And that naturally grows with every message. That's exactly what eats up your allowance. In this case, 5 billion repeated tokens versus 4 million tokens. That's a ratio of 1,300 to 1. And that's exactly where Ponytail's thinking goes wrong. The skill tweaks the 1% made up by the newly written code. The 99%, the repeated history, it doesn't touch that at all. That's why it can't double your subscription either. Purely from an architecture standpoint, it can't. It's basically turning the wrong screw when it comes to saving. So let's put it to the test. We'll test this now with 3 variants of the exact same task, A, B, and C. A is just Claude Code as it is, without loading these Ponytail skills. Variant B. We write, follow these YAGNI principles. That's just my quick way of putting it. So the you aren't gonna need it principle. And variant C is then the full Ponytail skill. The prompt is unbelievably simple. Build me a form field where you can select a date. This whole thing is now running with Opus 4.8. Here's what I did. In this case, I opened Claude Code in safe mode, so that basically none of my instructions, skills, plugins, hooks, MCPs, and that kind of stuff run along with it. That way, we can really check, completely strip down, how Claude Code works in these cases. So first off, we can see it's thinking a little bit, and it gets started right away too. It basically tells us, hey, I'm about to get going. It's building a clean, standalone date picker field. Now there's a little note here. Since there's no project directory with a specific framework, it'll make it as a standalone HTML file. That's perfect. And then, it contains a native date field, plus its own good-looking calendar pop-up. Now, we're actually in the wrong mode in Claude Code right now, so we basically just switch it into auto mode. Type it out, then save again. That was just a mistake on my part, but it doesn't change anything about the code Claude Code is writing here. Alright, so now we have our HTML file. Let's open it up. It's not running right now, so I'll launch it directly from the folder. Now we have the date drop-down here. Just a date field. Pretty simple. It looks really good. I like it. The date drop-down is nice. You can select a date, but you can't freely type into it. You can only use it through this date pop-up. Now let's take a quick look inside. 322 lines of HTML code. Sure, here and there we've got a comment, we've also got a gap here, a line break, and so on. But basically, just under 300 lines of code. Okay, now let's open up a new tab. We'll just create a folder for this. Call it something like test, whatever. It doesn't matter at all. Let's jump right in. We'll start Claude again in safe mode, and then we give it this first. Follow these you aren't gonna need it principles, and prefer one-liner solutions. And then, after that, comes our prompt again. Build me a form field that lets you pick a date. So it's basically just those 7 words. Follow these principles. No download, no plugin. Just that one sentence in front of the prompt now. And the question, of course, is, how will the result look? Will it look similar? Now, of course, we've got the same problem with the auto mode again here. I've rewritten it, so it should work right away this time. And now we've got a one-liner here. That's really something. Let's take a look at it. Date.html. And yeah, we got exactly what we wanted with a single line. Namely, the label, a slug from the HTML itself. And it spits out the whole thing right away. We can pick the date, just like before. It doesn't look as nice, of course. It just uses the browser's built-in calendar pop-up. We can even type the numbers in manually here. That wasn't possible with the other one. Yeah, it doesn't look great, but it does exactly what it's supposed to do. And that was just those principles. Now I'm curious to see what happens when we actually do the whole thing with Ponytail. So we basically just create another new folder here, Claude again. Then we switch this mode right here, and we kick the whole thing off with Ponytail. After that, we trigger the Ponytail signal directly here, or rather just the plugin, and then we type in what we want. Now we've basically got the full skill, so the whole thing is using Ponytail now. And, yeah, that was it already. The file datafield.html has been created. This time we actually got 4 lines of code in total, and that's because the HTML was formatted a bit more cleanly. So you can see the difference here. If we load up the smaller package next to it, there we've got literally everything on a single line. That doesn't look great, obviously, but we got the exact same result in code, 1-to-1, just without the colon, only formatted a bit nicer. So there's just as much content, it's just 3 lines more because it was simply formatted better. If we take a look at the whole thing, nothing should actually change at all. Right, we can see it's a different file, but it's the exact same thing twice. So it's the exact same pop-up, the exact same calendar widget, everything is exactly the same. That's really interesting, of course, but this example was also very simple. For the real test, I took time to evaluate everything off camera. I measured it all again with Sonnet 5, the model most of us are running too. Right now, Sonnet 5 is one of the most used models out there. I picked 4 typical tasks in the same project. Each one I ran once with Ponytail and once without. We won't do all of this live in the video. That would blow the whole thing out of proportion. I don't want to drop a 20-minute monster here. Just a quick and easy video about Ponytail. And up here you can already see the reason for the hype. 24.54% less code. That sounds massive, but the tokens, the thing that actually hits your subscription, are only 22%. And the claim that it doubles your subscription is, like I said, something Ponytail never states anywhere itself. First, let's start with what's being advertised, namely, the lines of code. With the first task, the dashboard, the difference is brutal. 101 lines of code with Ponytail versus 464. But look at 2 other examples. They're almost the same. There, Ponytail barely helps the code. Here, I had it build a user login and a CSV export. Without the skill, I ended up with fewer lines in both examples than with it. That could come back to the formatting thing again. Still, these numbers are clean, and that's the most important part. What really counts are the tokens. Everything going left is saved. Everything going right costs more. So green is good, red is bad. One task is green, the other 3 are red. With the login, it's even plus 161%. Ponytail actually used more tokens there, not fewer. That genuinely shocked me a little. And when it comes to speed, we see the exact same picture. In 3 out of 4 tasks, Ponytail was slower, and significantly so. On the rate limit, it took 1.5 minutes versus 17 seconds. So I had it add rate limiting to an existing codebase, and it just took almost 7 times as long. So here's the bottom line. In exactly 1 out of 4 tests, Ponytail actually saved me tokens. In 3 out of 4, it cost the same or even more, and it was slower on top of that too. So this thing is obviously not just some across-the-board money-saving machine. It's more of an emergency brake against over-motivated AI. And the best part? This super viral skill is, at the end of the day, just a text file. You could theoretically have built it yourself in 5 minutes. Ponytail is fundamentally not a bad skill at all. It's a genuinely AI
great
just has
thing.
this tendency to massively overbuild features sometimes. It over-engineers things that are absolutely not necessary. That said, I think this plugin or this skill comes a little too late. Models like Opus 4.8 or GPT 5.5 can already be brought down to an absolute minimum with well-targeted development environments. So if I'm already using good skills, good frameworks, and good MCPs anyway, a Ponytail just isn't necessary here anymore. Half a year to a year ago, I would have said this skill is amazing. Or even back when we weren't talking about skills yet. Just as a handy guideline, as a prompt structure you always include, it would have been a 10 out of 10. But by now, it's simply not that relevant anymore. And that brings us to the biggest point of contention. Colin Eberhard, the tech chief at Scott Logic, rebuilt the original benchmark. His result? The exact 7 words from my test beat the entire skill. That's 6.9 lines on average with the simple YAGNI prompt, basically just like it says here. So you aren't going to need it, versus 8.25 lines with the Ponytail plugin. So the one-liner prompt is actually better than using the plugin. And Colin, the CTO, found something else too. The first Ponytail benchmark was broken. The comparison group, the one without the skill, secretly had it running anyway, a bug in the startup hook. So the baseline was already Ponytail, and that's why the numbers looked so spectacular at first. To be fair, the developer admitted the mistake and rebuilt everything. And that's exactly the 22% figure from before. That's the honest one now. It's also why the headlines have gone quiet. And the community, of course, is as split as ever. On Hacker News, someone writes, "The irony, a huge repo for a single prompt. Is this the new left pad?" And on Reddit, the core is a 20-line prompt. The rest is just packaging. And a few even report worse results. Compact code, but a lot more extra work afterwards. So the question is, of course, is this whole thing really worth 81,000 GitHub stars? Probably not. It's just like everything in the AI space right now. The moment something comes along that sounds even remotely cool, everyone loses their minds. And these things rack up stars like crazy. So, Ponytail, is it worth it or not? My take, very clearly, is yes, but for a completely different reason. Ponytail doesn't double your subscription.
Realistically, it saves maybe 20% under good conditions with a small model, but it does make your code leaner regardless. Less bloat, fewer unnecessary libraries, and less that you'll have to maintain later on, too. Honestly, that's worth more than the token savings. It's just that nobody sells it that way, because everyone's so obsessed with saving on their subscription. And if you want to skip the download, just drop these 7 words into your CLAUDE.md. Follow. You aren't going to need it. Principles and prefer one-liner solutions.
That's just 7 words, and it gets you almost the entire effect. The only real advantage of the full skill is that it never leaves out anything on security. The bare prompt can cause that. And to save tokens, do it at the right lever. For example, in Claude Code, never max out that 1 million context window. Instead, stop at 300,000 to 400,000 tokens, then hit /clear. Then the session is empty, and you basically start over from scratch. Ideally, at the end of the session, just have it write you a short piece of documentation. You can use Claude Memory. There's also a plugin called Claude.md, which saves all your memories. And that way, you save a massive amount of tokens. And above all, usage from your subscription. /clear is the biggest lever there is. Your Claude.md needs to be kept lean, ideally under 200 lines. You have to pick the right model, and you should point directly to file paths, instead of just copying random files in. That saves you more than this skill, because it tackles the 99% and not just the 1. My take on Ponytail? Awesome idea, with a solid core, but it's completely watered down by viral numbers that you absolutely can't verify or trust. If you need consulting for your business, just check out the video description below. Do you use something like Ponytail? Or is a well-written Claude.md enough for you? Let me know in the comments. And see you next time.